forever expanding. But also remember that debt has to be paid. So if it's forever expanding, well, how do you think? And when things sit still, let me qualify that. And when things start to sit still, you start having a recession. So in other words, people stop spending, stop necessarily going on vacation, and they start hoarding those greenbacks or whatever it is that they have. Then that's when you receive or get into a recession or a depression. Now, that's a simplified explanation of it, but that's the essential of what it is. When everybody's moving, everything's good, and expanding, everything's good. But good times require you to sacrifice the lives or the livelihood of your children or your great-grandchildren or your great-great-great-grandchildren, because think of the debt that they're going to have if we live in what we call prosperity by the way and means of the federal banking system. Think about your children 6 generations down the line. Now, saying that you don't have a responsibility to them is saying that you don't have a responsibility to yourself, because they only exist in you right now. Okay? So this is more than just you just saving your house. This is about an entire banking system. But I know that the key thing that we need to do in order for you to actually even see anything else is to get that big fire emergency out of your face, and that is shutting the banks down from taking your house. Now, once we get beyond all the administrative process by documenting these things, and all the administrative is just documenting the correspondence between you and the bank, explaining to them that you are aware that they haven't executed on the contract, that if they want to proceed forward at all in any form or fashion, then they need to provide you the loan, that you know that the promissory note, you can either say that you know it or have them send you a copy of it so that you know that it's res judica, or that it's been sold off, that it's complete and done, there's nothing else to it. Again, if I sell you my Cadillac, and what you do to it afterwards has nothing to do with me. If I sell you my Vulcan motorcycle in the garage, then you may love that thing and I may want to come ride it, but if you don't let me, guess what? That's your business, because it's yours. So, same thing with the promissory note. Now, you just want to confirm it, right? Now, also, when they get into filing these court cases, the reason I say file criminal complaints is that if the contract was not valid in the first place, and you told them about it, that it wasn't valid, and they didn't do anything to correct it, what have they done? They've committed fraud with willful intent. That is a crime. Well, you know what willful intent means? Hey man, don't hit that girl upside the head, or I'm not going to say I don't promote female violence, but don't hit that dude upside the head with a bat. That'll kill him. And you hit him upside the head with a bat anyway. You can't say that it was insightful, that you were mad, that you were angry, because someone tried to stop you and they told you what would happen to him if you did that, and he died. There's no chance for manslaughter or any lesser crimes at that point, because you were notified. So it's the same thing here as willful intent. If they know that the documents were invalid, and they move against you, then what's fraudulent is their actions. And for an attorney to do this is even worse. This is why you can sanction or add the attorneys in that, because the first thing you should do if they move an action against you, you send that correspondence over to the attorney, evidencing the situation, and say, look, are you sure you want to proceed forward with this, because the contract was invalid, so on and so forth. You have nothing to hide. You have a legitimate stance. The contract was invalid. If they want to move forward against me, I have no problem with that, as long as they perform. And then I would adhere to all of the terms of the valid agreement. But it's invalid. So then what happens when that attorney continues to file the case? He's been noticed. He should have went to his client and asked that question, and then advised his client to do the right thing. His duty is to the public. Before his duty is to his client, his duty is to the public. His first duties are this. This is what an attorney's duties are. First duty is to the court. Second duty is to the public. Third duty is to the client. Now, was this not in public interest and the court interest for the truth to be known here? At least for the court to be known the truth? the truth to be known to the court, and then second to the public? Because what happens if he continues to move forward? Does that hurt the public? If they continue to steal people's property, or promote or help people steal people's property, is that helping the public or hurting the public? It's hurting the public because it's setting a precedence to where you can actually go and do it to more and more and more and more people. So that's also a premise of how you can make a complaint. And that's American jurisprudence. That's American jurisprudence and their oath to a bar association, which is a completely other thing. But oh my goodness. So we have to stay focused on these things. What I'm seeing a lot of course, is we get we get attorneys that are very good at distracting you from the point. And they it's ridiculous, but it is funny. We had a bank. I have a friend that had a bank. Sent back a list of inquiry, which was a list of terms that were included in her brief that they wanted defined, and this list was like 3 pages long. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Are you serious?" They do things like this. Bank was on that list. Money was on that list. Credit was on that list. The issue with that is, the attorney they won't know the answer to those things. But guess who you're in a contract with, or at least they say that you're in a contract with? A banking professional. So if anyone knows the agreement, or the definitions to those terms, who is it? It's that banking individual. So qualified banking individual at that. So why are you asking me? It's an attempt to win through attrition, so that you won't answer. You get frustrated, won't answer, won't know how to answer, get stuck, and not respond, and then guess what? They put a petition or a motion to dismiss or move against you, depending on whatever position that they are, because you didn't respond. And that's how most of their cases are won. That's how most of their cases are won through attrition, and or tricking someone into getting off their point of argument. You stay on those points. The contract was never valid. Now, there's another thing out there where people in an administrative process in the past, I know, and I don't know her current situation. I really would like to, because I hope she's okay. Only reason I say this is because I know she's helped people. And who wants to cause harm to someone? I mean, I would love to just live life harmoniously as long as I don't cause harm to anyone else. That we live in peace. But you're aware of somebody trying to take your liberty away. Anyway, Karen Tappert. I don't know anything about her current situation, but I know in the past she was teaching people to an administrative process where you actually filed a quit claim deed on the behalf of the bank, as well as your satisfaction and so forth. And there's been some ridicule to that, and justifiably so, because that's a dangerous mode if you don't know how to stand on it. And I've stated this before. You must know how to stand on the thing that you do. If I had filed an administrative process where I did a quit claim deed for someone, even though this day and time I wouldn't do it, but if I did, the way I would stand on it would be through my correspondence. So the question is, how are contracts established? First of all, you have to have authority to do it. So how is authority established? Authority established through agreement. How are agreements established? Agreements are established by expressed or implied communication. Expressed is written out, talked about, plainly stated. Implied is by actions, by implication, which means your actions have determined that you agreed to do a certain thing. That is a legitimate contract. Now, only on certain terms. For example, you can't say, well, somebody agreed to sell me my house, their house because they handed me the keys. Unfortunately, there are certain. Well, I shouldn't say unfortunately. There are certain exceptions to contracts that can be done implied or by implication, and those are restrictions include real estate, or property, which makes sense. If I ask you to house it and then I come back home and you're saying that it's yours, no, then there's a big problem there. You'd be surprised how much that would happen. So anyway, certain things are required to be in writing, but certain things aren't. So and the sale of real estate is. So if I make an agreement or state that, hey, this is what I want to do, and if you don't want me to do that, just let me know. If you do, I'm going to assume that it's okay with you, and we're going to move forward. And I'll give you, hey, plenty of time. Let's say, you got 30 days to respond. And guess what? They don't respond. That's an agreement. It is, like it or not. How do you think the debt collectors get away with things? You don't have a contract with any debt collector. You had a contract with the principal, but you didn't have a contract with the debt collector. So it's the same thing with the servicer, even with the banks that go down the line. First of all, before you even establish a chain of title, establish whether the contract is legitimate and execute it. And if it's not executed and even meet the requirements, that means it's not element. That means nothing ever existed properly in it. I think they have a saying that, well, no, I know they have a saying, and as a matter of fact, before we run late, I talked to Steve, and he mentioned the same thing too, that fraud vitiates everything. That means it corrupts everything. If something starts out legitimately, and there's a point in time that fraud comes into that picture, everything after that is done is because it's fraud, it's illegitimate, invalid, because it's fraudulent, based on fraud. If you start out with fraud, as the seed, whatever the seed is what it's going to be, is what the tree's going to be. So if the seed of fraud is planted and you start a contract with that seed, then that's a fraudulent tree. It doesn't exist. It's not going to grow. It can't go anywhere. It's stuck. Okay. So I don't know how long we've been going, but that's the gist. That's really the gist of it. The main thing is, I know that people have an issue with going to court. I know that was one of the big things that I was just speaking with somebody on this last couple of days, is that they find it big that people just don't want to go to court. And that's a legitimate concern. I know some people have an issue with that. There are a couple of remedies for that. There's one, you make your administrative process so strong, which, and when I say strong, I mean locked down, solid, witnessed affidavits that mailings went out, witness affidavits that that there was no response because you had someone set up as a witness to receive mail from you for this specific situation. Using process servers. I know someone told me that Jonathan Stewart was recommending that people use process servers, so I looked into it a little bit, and he had something there. I didn't, and it's not in every state, but in certain states, processors are deemed, because they're licensed, they're deemed to be officers of the court, I believe, or court officials. Also, I can't remember what it said, but anyway, so it attaches them to the court nonetheless. So if your state does license processors, and they are deems them to be not public officers, but court officers, then that's an element that we need to use. And I know processors can be expensive, but they can be reasonable as well, especially if we get a courier processor. A lot of what I mean by that is, I know I played in a football league that had was started by some bike messengers, and a lot of them, because they deliver for a living, also get licensed to process. So they're not very expensive, maybe $45 or something like that, for delivery. Some are more, some are less. You might can just get, if you have a friend or whatever the case is, I don't know. But anyway, the point is, if it becomes necessary, and again, it's relevant to your state, because not all states do that. If your state doesn't, and you're dealing in a state situation, then there's no need to pay that extra cost. You can actually get a friend to do it. And that's another thing. When you're filing things in the court cases, it's best that you don't do it yourself. The reason being is because you want to have witness that something was delivered, and obviously, getting them to sign something, that a certain document entitled such and such was delivered by such and such, and they usually want a copy of it. They'll see that that's a non-interested party, so they'll go ahead and